Hello, and welcome to the tour of the Exeter Public Safety Complex and Exeter Fire Department. My name is Chief Eric Wilking, and I have been blessed to work for the town of Exeter since 2005 and now serve as your fire chief. As we move through the building, I want to just bring your attention to a few pieces and start with a bit of history. In 1978, when the concept of a new public safety complex was thought, the fire department had 3 shifts operating with 4 personnel each, a chief of department and an assistant fire chief. At that time, the department ran on 762 calls for service, and that year, reading the town report, was a busy year for the fire department. As we pushed from the 70s into the 80s, the 3 shifts of 4 turned to 4 shifts of 4. Later in the 80s and early 90s, the shifts of 4 became shifts of 5. In 2007, they became 4 shifts of 6. And in most recent years, in 2018, 2 additional firefighters were hired, bringing the shift strength to 2 shifts to 7, with the others at 6. And this year, we're seeking the addition of 2 additional firefighters to round out the shift strength at 7 personnel per. There are now 4 chief officers, a chief of department, an assistant chief of operations, deputy chief of training, and a deputy chief of fire prevention and inspections. In addition, we have a civilian office manager, have space for a part-time office clerk, and we also support the town's health officer. So much is going on. In 2021, our calls for service equaled 3,800, an additional 323 fire inspections, and 363 health inspections. So we have come a long way since 1978. I would be remiss if I did this video without thanking Bob Glowacki and the crew at EXTV for putting it together, the facility committee for taking much of their time and efforts to bring this project forward, the budget committee and their ability to seek financing and how we're best to support the project, the select board. Dave Sharple's a town planner. Without him, I'm not sure much of this would be moving at the pace it is, and town manager Russ Dean. Your support and assistance to the project has been tremendous, and I look forward to working further. As we enter the fire department through the public entrance, you notice it's a public safety complex. We enter through the PD dispatch. There's a hallway that brings you down to a set of stairs that lead you to the second floor of the fire department. In 1978, no thought was given to an elevator or making the building better accessible to those that are disabled. So those that arrive at the firehouse to pay an ambulance bill, have a question, ask for a burn permit, all have to ascend the second floor stairs. As we take a look at the administrative offices, they've remained much unchanged since 1978. The offices house the chief of department, the assistant chief. The deputy chief of training's office is what used to be our file room. The deputy chief of prevention's office is what used to be a storage room and electrical closet. And the health inspector works out of what used to be the library conference room. All the rooms have been repurposed for additional personnel. Our office manager and office clerk work out of the central area. We have added part-time or portable petitions, and both employees work out of the same space as we move along in that area. As we continue our tour, we look at the training room. The training room, when built in 1978, was designed for 24 to 28 people. The call firefighters or volunteers were far more numerous than they are today, and it was nothing to have a meeting with well over 20 people or a training session in that room. Today, the room seats 16 to 20 people comfortably. We can squeeze 24 people in when we need to, and that training room also serves as the town's emergency operations center during real events like the ice storm for 11 days, the Seabrook radiological planning drills that we do 3 times a year, and it is not uncommon to have 20 people seated in the room needing to work. Adjacent to the EOC is a storage closet. The storage closet houses all of our emergency management meters, forms, plans, maps, and that nature, as well as radio equipment necessary to communicate via ham back to the state's EOC in Concord and emergency units operating in Exeter. The rear wall of the training room has become a report writing and data entry area. That area is used every day by the firefighters and paramedics to fill out reports, continue to generate those, and when we do a training or an exercise, it's virtually impossible to write a report or to do your data entry in the training room because of the multi-purpose functions of that room. We have storage closets down below where we store extra gear, extra uniforms, and materials. It is packed to the gills, and as we're using space above for extra things like CPR mannequins and things of that nature. 8 feet of the training room was removed recently in 2019 and 2020 to add 2 additional bathrooms. The fire station was built in 1978 with simply 1 restroom, unisex, shower, for a typically all-male business of the fire service. Today, we have 29 men and 3 women on the fire department, and additional bathrooms were necessary in order to facilitate many people using the restrooms or showering after an incident. As we mentioned, the station was built with 3 shifts of 4. There were 5 bunk rooms initially put in the station in 1978. Those 5 bunk rooms are used by personnel today. 4 people are assigned to each bunk room, 1 per shift, so they rotate through. The rooms are used every night. But as you can imagine, with shifts of 7, we were then forced to use a storage closet at the end of the hall to house 2 additional firefighter EMTs or paramedics in the end storage closet. So that has necessitated the reuse of that area as well. The kitchen was designed for a crew of 5 and a couple of chiefs back in the 70s and 80s. We were very fortunate around 2014, 2015. We were able to do a full renovation of the kitchen. We replaced the appliances, countertops, and cabinetry in there. The kitchen still today supports 6, 7, 8 people. But as you can see at the table, the crew of 7 fits comfortably around the table to dine, whether it's breakfast or dinner, but there's no room for office managers, staff, the health officer, or any chief officer. All those employees in the building are forced to eat at their duty station or their desk for their lunch meal. The pantry off the kitchen has been repurposed. That not only is it a pantry and closets, now it's the laundry room, and it's a passage hallway, narrow at that, to the 3rd bathroom, as we had no other way to get entry into the bathroom. As we move further along on the 2nd floor, one thing I just want to draw your attention to is the length of the hallway and the travel distances. When we had our study done by the CPSM, a couple of things that they pointed out and made recommendations of was trying to find ways of reducing the time it took from the time a caller dialed 911 to the time a piece of apparatus, whether ambulance or engine, arrived on the scene. The standard for turnout in FBA 1710 recommends that dispatch time, the time the caller takes to work through the 911 system and is logged and the dispatcher sends the call to the firefighters, should be no greater than 64 seconds. The time it takes the firefighters and EMTs to turn out, if you will, leave where they are, training, kitchen, bunk room, day room, to the apparatus floor, should be no greater than 80 seconds, and travel time should be no greater than 240 seconds or 4 minutes. All of these are benchmarks that are best practices and should be sought in the study of a new building or new station. One thing I'd like to point out is the firefighters travel 60 feet of hallway, 3 flights of stairs and 2 landings just to arrive at the apparatus floor. Where there, they put their gear on, they mount the apparatus before signing on the air. The study looked at a year's data from 2018 to 19 and found that our average turnout time was 126 seconds, or just over 2 minutes, well over the time recommended for best practice. The station design itself has much to do with our ability to get out and serve the public. So any way we can reduce or minimize travel between living quarters and apparatus quarters will aid in our ability to speed up our turnout time, thus getting on the scene as quickly as possible to help the citizens. As we continue to move through the apparatus bay, you'll notice several pictures that Bob took addressing space needs on the apparatus bay. From 1978 till now, apparatus has gotten increasingly larger. Apparatus is taller, It's 6 inches wider and in many times 3 to 4 feet longer. Apparatus averages 8.5 feet wide, 33 to 34 feet long, and as you can see by many of the pictures, it barely fits in under the steel beams and girders that support the second floor. This is entirely problematic when we have to reload hose after an incident in the wintertime. There's no way for us to ascend the apparatus to reload the hose without pulling the apparatus outdoors and working in the winter months to reload our hose and repack in order to back the fire trucks back in. So we're looking at a way to find more space, not only around, but above our apparatus. Space to move around the apparatus bay is limited. There's often no more than 5 or 6 feet between the tailboards of the rear of the apparatus. There's often no more than 18 inches on the front of the apparatus to either meet the door. And often the doors of the apparatus themselves hit one another as they're opening and closing. And our vehicle exhaust system that works to remove contaminants and diesel fuel often strike personnel and equipment as the apparatus leaves the building, leaving us to the potential of injury and or damage to the apparatus. Adjacent to our apparatus bay are some storage areas. We store our air packs waiting for service, our fire alarm equipment, electronics that run the building, radios, breathing air and refill station, as well as tools to support the apparatus and do minor repairs. All of this is housed in a small room, approximately 20 feet long and about 8 feet wide. As you can see, it's pretty tight. Hose purchase today doesn't require the necessity of drying as it did back in 1978. A hose tower was included with a station design, and that would not really need to be added to a new building. Our current hose tower is used as an overflow closet, drag dummies, hose loading wheels, ladders, large bulky items. Our snowblower often gets stored in the hose tower because today it's nothing more than a storage closet. So stations of the future would not need that, as the new nylon synthetic style hose is designed to be washed, packed wet, and it dries on the apparatus. Also adjacent to the apparatus is a gear cleaning and storage room. Our gear that is not currently assigned to personnel stores there. We have a washer that washes our turnout gear and dries it. We have a storage closet that houses our EMS equipment and supplies as well. As we move through the bathroom, that also doubles as a laundry room and deep sink for cleaning the apparatus floor, not a lot of privacy on the apparatus bath. We pass through and we see the ladder bay in the gym. The ladder is parked in this bay because it's the bay in the station that we could raise the header to over 14 feet to accommodate the height of the ladder truck we purchased in 2014. The rear of the ladder bay is also what we use as the gym. This gym and equipment you see, much of it, some was donated, much of it was purchased by either the union members themselves, the police department, or local gyms, as we said, donated. The gym is 12 by 12. It fits a couple of people at a time. There is no air exchange in the gym. There's no air conditioning in the summertime. There's no cooling in the warming in the wintertime. It's not really a hospitable place that suits it well, but it is used by both law enforcement, PD personnel, as well as fire. As you see, the ladder fits pretty tight in the bay. There's not a lot of room on either side of the ladder truck, and even less room as the ladder truck pulls out of the apparatus bay, and it has already struck the building once while responding to a call, causing $27,000 of damage to the ladder and several $1,000s damage to the door in the building. In my line of work, we use a catchphrase that says, if it's predictable, it's preventable. And I predict over the years the ladder will strike the building again, and the only way to prevent that would be to provide a larger opening, perhaps such one as 14 feet wide and an 18-foot wide bay to accommodate such a big vehicle. As we move along the tour a bit longer, I wanted to go outside a bit. The ramp on the apparatus bay is large enough for the engines. However, we found that with the ladder truck being 42 feet, we do not have room to set the ladder truck on the apparatus bay to do the daily checks to operate the ladder. We're constantly pulling the ladder out and putting it in the side parking that many of you remember was the Getty gas station, where we do our ladder operational checks daily on the truck. So additional space in front of the station would be a welcome sight if there was a way to orient the station to allow us to work in front of the building, especially in the good weather months. The public loves to interact with the firefighters. We love to be outside where people can see what's going on, but the space just doesn't allow for it. Adjacent to the side of the building is a small training area. It's where our dumpsters are. It's where the generator that runs the station on backup power is. And if you look directly along the side of the station to where the staff parking is, the rear of the vehicles are actually parking hanging over the property line of our adjacent abutter. We have great neighbors. Nobody complains, but the building itself is pretty much built out to the edges of the property line. The staff parking we share with the police department, and as both our agencies have grown, staff parking becomes problematic. The fleet of police cars takes up one side. The police officers and their support personnel, including dispatchers, is the other side. And it leaves the fire department and firefighters to double park, one nose to tail, and oftentimes the apparatus that they drive or the equipment sticks out beyond the bay we used for the forestry truck, necessitating the moving of vehicles before response. So you can see the property we have at 20 Court Street is a little bit tight. I do look forward to working with all of you and perhaps answering more questions as we move along. But I know Bob and I felt it important to get a quick glimpse of what the current working conditions are and what the facility can offer, and perhaps some of the shortcomings that can be addressed either through renovation, rebuild, or moving it in general. I thank you again for your time and look forward to answering your questions.